everybody, I'm InTheLittleWood, also known as Martin. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to more information about the upcoming game of Hytale. So today there's a brand new blog post which is titled The Creation of a New Point of Interest for Adventure Mode. So if you don't know, a point of interest is basically a special location that's usually going to be catching to the eye, and it's where something of significance usually happens. It doesn't always have to be a groundbreaking big story piece, it can just be a small encounter, or at least a place that looks like it's built up by, you know, human hands or trolk hands, whatever race it is that inhabits it. It's something that differs from the natural terrain. And today we've been given an insight as to how these are created by the development team, and more interestingly, about elemental circles, which is the focus of this blog post. So on the screen right now, you can see the very first beginning pieces of an elemental circle. This isn't the final product. As this blog post goes along, we start to see more and more how the layers of the development going back and forth between the concept artists and the builders from the Hytale team start to create a fully fleshed out and sort of an ambient environment. So what you're looking at right now is apparently an earth circle. So there are obviously the various elements within the world of Orbis. We've got earth, lightning, water, fire, wind, and also void. And this one, according to the blog post, is specifically to zone 1, that is Earth. So already now, we've got a little bit of confirmation that each zone is going to be representative of one of the elements. So if we go back to the World Gem blog post from a little while ago, you might remember that image of the various zones that we had revealed. So now we know zone 1 is for grass, which is great, or Earth. Zone 2 was the one that was a mystery, so we'll come back to that in a moment. Zone 3, of course, would be water. It does say on the next image, though, that we'll show you in a moment, that it's frost, so it's kind of one and the same realistically. We've got zone 4, which is obviously going to be fire. That one was easy to guess. And then I'd never really paid too much attention to the electric bolts that you can see sort of in the sky around the unannounced zone 5, but now it makes total sense. That zone is going to be representative of lightning. And then of course, we've all kind of guessed it at this point, the final zone is very likely to be void. So that leaves over for zone 2 the element of wind, aka freedom, and it plays a major part in what the Ferens wear on their braces in the story of Hytale. And of course there's even things like the howling sands. Obviously that could be representative of the animals in the zone, you know, making the howling noises like coyotes and the like, but I think it's maybe more representative of wind brushing across the top of the sand dunes and going down these strange little caverns, creating that strange ominous howling noise. So the blog post goes on to confirm that this is actually going to be the stage for a combat encounter. It actually refers to it as an arena. So that's got me wondering, similarly to how the bears, you know, the grizzlies, they've said before that if you attack them, they'll attack you, but once you run far enough away, they'll actually de-aggro. I'm wondering if we're even going to be able to do that at all. What happens if you enter one of these circles and then all of a sudden an elemental wall or barrier throws up all around it and you only have that very small space to inhabit, so you either win or you lose. There's no middle option to be able to flee and run away because you're actually trapped in there with either a gigantic mini boss, a regular boss, it could even be like numerous waves of mobs spawning in one at a time, who knows? And then we're presented with the Hytale concept art for the stone circles. So let's work through zones 1 to 4 and see how they differ. So in zone 1, the Emerald Grove, we have got the earth element. Now the version of the circle that we've shown here is actually closer to the final product that we're going to see in a couple screenshots time. But you can see that we've got these giant jagged rocks which are actually wedged in with some kind of strange glowing green rock. Now this could be thorium, which is one of the ores around the world of Hytale, but I'm not convinced on that point, and you'll see why in just a second. Out of all of the elemental circles that we're going to see today, this is the most distinct in terms of that circular shape, especially with the fact that it walls you in. Then we move on to zone 2, the Howling Sands, and this one seems very different to all of the other 4. This one actually seems to have just a statue with the wind element floating between the legs. Maybe the surrounding area of the statue will be more fleshed out by the time we see it in the final piece, but for now, it could just be in the middle of nowhere. It's important to talk about the dotted line beneath the sand statue as well. That seems to show an emphasis on the shape of a triangle. And moving on to the Borea for zone 3, we can see again that another shape is taking form. Yes, it's kind of circular, but there's actually a star emblem being made. For the devastated lands of zone 4, you can see that we have an outer circle, but then also an inner circle. So there is sort of like this ogres or onions layers vibe going on, with all of these circles having very distinct numbers of either pillars or points and everything else like that. I'm wondering if we have to complete a certain number of objectives in that zone before we can even begin to interact with the elemental circle. Following this are a couple of quotes from one of the artists known as Paulina Lagardo, who talks about how they actually design each of these circles to fit the environments that they inhabit, very similarly to the talks that we had previously about the challenge and the portal dungeons, using the right kinds of materials but having that consistent styling throughout. They even seem to be going to the lengths of creating entirely new block types to make these places look just right. Like, look at the pillars on the left hand side there. You've got them stacking up with stone right the way to the top, and then some of them happen to have grass on top of them. But when I say that, I don't mean an entire dirt and grass block, actually just a thin layer of grass on top of the stone. It's kind of hard to determine right now whether that's actually a stone block with grass as a single entity, or whether you've got almost like a bit of fake lawn, you know what I mean? Like a little bit of carpet to pop on the top. Either way, Baxter from the build team has completed their first draft, and they send it back to Paulina for the next stage of the process. That's where Paulina looks at it and goes, actually, I want this added here, this removed there, and with some good old MS Paint, we get the idea of where the visual should move to next. So another revision is complete, and Baxter has thrown out a brand new version of the elemental circle, and it is looking rad. One of the most notable changes to point out is that in the centre of the sort of podium, if you will, the platform, the pedestals have gone from 2 to 1, and now on top of it, we have got a strange green crystal, which I can only assume is a physical embodiment of the element of earth. This could be the same type of thing that we saw on the goddess Gaia's hair beads. Do you remember those? All of them were very distinctly coloured to match the elements, and this could be what they were carved from. I am wondering if this is all going to play into the story of in each zone there is going to be one singular elemental circle. Once you meet the right requirements and you manage to trigger the scenario that happens there, you defeat the challenge that lies in front of you, you get the crystal, and then you take it all the way over to the Garden of Elements at the Temple of Gaia. With that crystal in the hand, you can unlock the door to the tower that corresponds to that element, and then be granted with another dungeon to tackle. You defeat the story dungeon, you get a bead, and once you've got all 5 or 6 beads together, you can awaken Gaia from her slumber to help you go on to the final battle with Varin. That's just where my mind is at the moment with how the story could progress inside of Hytale, so let's see how it plays out. But hold your horses, before you can even do that, you need to figure out how to interact with the circle, because in the blog post it specifically says that it's triggered when players interact with the area in a particular way. This could have a whole different range of meanings. Maybe we need to use the in-game instruments to play a melody to awaken the crystal's power. Maybe just simply walking over to it kickstarts it. Or like I said before, maybe you attune with the crystal with some weird magic stuff. You put your hand out, you close your eyes, you say the magic words, and poof! There you go, a golem's appeared. Just as a little side note, by the way, I keep looking at this Earth circle, and I cannot for the life of me unsee the rock trolls from Frozen. I can't. So we've awoken the circle, we've defeated whatever challenge lay in our way, and now the crystal is ours. Now the question is, do we get just the one crystal from the center of the podium, or can we actually farm what seems to be more of that crystal type from each of the pillars? Will any of this elemental circle actually be salvageable, or is it kind of an indestructible object? If we are able to garner more crystals from this one location, then maybe they're not going to be as important to the story as I first thought. What they could be used for instead is a crafting material in order to make those elemental weapons that we've been talking about previously. Which I guess also opens up the question of, will there just be one elemental circle per zone, or will we have quite a few of them? I'm leaning towards the latter at the moment, because in the blog post it goes on to talk about how the random terrain generation could affect how these circles are represented. Some may have specific rules where they can only spawn on flatlands, which they have actually confirmed is the preferred space for the Earth circle. But for other ones, if they happen to land on the side of a hill or maybe the peak of a mountain where the central point is nice and high but the surrounding area is low, apparently they are going to be relatively adaptable. So as far as the elemental circles go, I think I'm pretty much spent on my speculation for today. So if you've got any more thoughts and theories, then please leave them in the comment section below. I love theorizing about this stuff with all of you guys, and let's dive into the final few screenshots that are inside of this blog post. The first is a ruined settlement. So this looks like it was some kind of old marketplace, maybe sort of an outpost for some, military forces, and it looks really cool, slightly overgrown and starting to crumble, but it's still holding its main structure in shape. Beneath that, we can see a chalk atop a mighty watchtower. Doesn't seem to have too much in the way of a rooftop on it. It seems to be a very simple pillar with a platform and a ladder going up to it, but that means that these chalks are going to be on the high rise to potentially signify their allies that you're coming. So will there be some kind of detection system in the game. Then to wrap things out, we have got the remains of a crumbled castle, and I reckon that this is probably one of the overworld entrances to a deeper dungeon. This could be formed up with prison cells, or maybe even just a sequence of mud tunnels. Either way, it works perfectly as a point of interest because it's doing its job just right. It's grabbing your attention, it's getting you intrigued, and it makes you want to explore. So there we go, everybody. That is everything from the brand new blog post. If there's anything that you noticed that I didn't, then feel free to let us know in the comment section below, you clever little cookie. And if you want to share it over on my Discord, then you can do. We've got an official Hytale chat inside of there. The URL, as always, is discord.gg/InTheLittleWood. So thank you very much for watching. Be sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe, and ring the bell if you want to see more news videos on Hytale, and I will keep them coming. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.